Hello, this is another video lecture for sociology class. And most recently in your notes, you should have a beautiful picture of concentric circles that I drew on the board describing the pieces of social structure. It's a complex framework or a blueprint, if you want to call it that, that is a combination of three parts that range from macro to micro. And this is a continuation of that set of notes that you have. And the next few lectures that you have in this week in sociology class, I have pulled videos from ones that I'm making brand new for you this semester and ones that I have made in previous semesters. So if I talk about a certain date something is due, or if I say that this video was from week 8 or something and we all know that we are not in week 8 yet, don't worry. You are supposed to be watching that video. Just click along in the Blackboard content for this particular week and make sure you go in order, videos 1 through 7 probably, that we have to watch for this week. And take careful notes, please, because last week's videos and this week's videos really give you some meat and potatoes that you need to do super well on Project 2 that's coming up sometime probably next week when I open that up for you. So let's get started because social structure is the topic right now, but really everything that we have discussed from week 1 until right now is part of the knowledge that you need to be carrying in the front of your mind when you are learning this new stuff, because this is some complicated, deeper dives that we're making into this material. So culture and socialization process and norms and types of norms and sanctions and going against the norms and personal behavior, all of that stuff that we have talked about up until this point is part of what you need to know in your background in order to understand the micro and macro connections, macro and micro connections that we're going to be making in these next few video lectures. So it's going to be your job on Project 2 to make some of those macro and micro connections about yourself and about a famous deceased individual. You'll have a list of people who you can choose from, and you're going to examine what their obituaries say compared to how look at what their obituary says about their microscale experiences that they had while they were alive, and you're going to analyze that to see what it's connected to on the macro scale. And then you're going to turn the focus on yourself also, or maybe not in that order. I think I have you do yourself first before you analyze the video, but we'll see. Analyze the obit, but we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so in this short introductory video for this week's lessons, I wanted to put a great deal of emphasis on that connection between macro and micro, because that's how we develop our sociological imagination. And if you think back to week 1, I told you that from that point that the sociological imagination is really the dominant course learning outcome that we have this whole semester. We have it listed on our syllabus as number 1, the first course learning outcome that we are going to develop and apply and use our sociological imagination. And then the other 3 learning outcomes that we have are vitally important for intro to sociology, but really we need all the rest of the stuff that we are studying in order to fully develop that sociological imagination. So you're going to understand social groups and social inequality and statuses and roles and social structure and all kinds of different components of social life. But the reason we're doing that is to be able to establish the connection between macro scale social structure that sometimes seems out of reach for us in our micro scale lives that we hyper focus on ourselves sometimes. We have to, to be a better thinker, to be able to think outside the box or perform critical thinking skills. I'm putting air quotes around these things because these are probably phrases that you've heard. You're probably nauseated when you hear those phrases because you've heard them so many times in your life. And really, what the heck do they mean? Well, they mean that you're going to be a better thinker and that you can do exactly what the sociological imagination says you're supposed to be able to do, which is make intelligent, informed, educated connections between the reality of social structure on the macro scale and how it affects individuals individuals. You are an individual. I'm an individual. Collectively, we are society. How does it affect individuals on the micro scale? And when you can make those connections and when you can see the links from macro scale social structure to ourselves, you become a better thinker. You can draw more sound conclusions, more reliable decisions that you can make based on your knowledge that you're using when you make those decisions in the first place. So, in this video, please notice that I have mirrored that three-circle picture that I had in a previous video that should already be in your notes. And really, I want to address why, I've done it a little bit already, why is social structure so important for us? It's macro scale. It seems out of our reach sometimes. Why is it so important for us? And remember, in that previous picture of concentric circles, I said it ranged from macro scale, where social institutions were, to statuses and roles in kind of the middle, over here to the social groups, the you and me level, over here on this side. And what I want to say in this one is maybe put it in more, instead of more, let me say less formal terms, because yes, social institutions is a vocabulary word you need to know. Statuses and roles, more vocabulary, lots of vocabulary. Read that section in chapter 4. And the microscale side, social groups, lots of details to know about that, different types of social groups and dynamics in them, like we will investigate in chapter 4 and chapter 5 when we move into that. But let's put it just in everyday language for just a second. The microscale side, of course, is the me and my behavior, my life experiences, how I interact with people around me. How do I interpret reality? What are my expectations for an event that's coming up in my life, or, something that I have to do and check off my priority list or something? How do I perform in my daily life? That's about me. That's my micro scale stuff. And it goes along with my social groups, the peers that I interact with. What are their expectations for me? Others have expectations for me, and my behavior typically is going to follow or try to follow if I care about those others. When I care about those others and what they think about me, I try to follow what their expectations are typically. I try to model my life after something that they might approve of so that they continue to be dear in my life and I continue to be dear to them. And that's kind of what in the olden days a social network was. You had people who were in your circle who you fed off of and interacted with on a daily basis, and those were the important people in your life. And when you were associated with them, you tried to model your behavior after them. It happened kind of automatically because your socialization process includes a lot of informal learning just from the life experiences that we have every single day. You accidentally pick up behaviors in your socialization process and in your daily life experiences, and they become part of your daily behavior, your interaction patterns, your performance level. When I say performance here, I mean, how do we act out the different scenes in our daily life? And do we live up to standards? Do we fall short of standards? Do we set high expectations for ourselves? Do we have self-fulfilling prophecies that we actualize? Those kinds of things. And so this micro scale sometimes seems like it's isolated. It's like, what affects it? It's just me. It's just, the people I'm around every day. But where do they get their behavioral expectations? They get their behavioral expectations from this center circle that on our other picture corresponds to statuses and roles. So the status that you have as friend, employee, student, sister, mother, brother, ex-wife, whatever it is, these statuses exist in society and have behaviors or roles associated with them. And so others base their behaviors on these statuses and roles, and they impose expectations on you based on their knowledge of statuses and roles. You impose expectations on them based on your statuses and roles. You expect me, your teacher, to do things like know the material, be on time with the lectures that you need, provide details, give you feedback, grade stuff on time, all of that kind of stuff. You have those expectations of me. And I'm not the only teacher you have those expectations of. You have those expectations of all your other teachers because you know this stuff, and this stuff that knowledge came from your socialization process, and the norms and the behaviors and the pattern that you learned is part of a air quotes, normal society came from the social institutions that exist on this macro scale side. So the social institutions create the roadmap that we follow over the life course of our socialization process. Remember, socialization never ends during our lifetime. It begins at birth at least, and it goes until death. We have to constantly learn and relearn and adjust the way we negotiate our daily life. When I was 20, my outlook on the future and my behaviors in my daily life were very different than now that I am, let's just say, I ain't 20 no mo. Okay? So it's a very different place on that roadmap where I am now, and so my outlook has adjusted, my daily behaviors and priorities have changed, and yours will too, based on the roadmap that we don't really have as much control over that roadmap as you might think. You're over here thinking, I'm in control of me. Oh, really? Because the social institutions over here are where the norms come from that we have to follow if we're going to get by easily in society. The closer we match the norms of society in our own microscale behavior, the easier a time we're going to have. The farther away that we break from the norms of macroscale society, the more of an outcast we're going to be in the way that we are breaking from the norms of society. This is where the macro scale side over here in the social institutions, that's where social facts come from. Ooh, there's another flashback from week 1, social facts. Those patterned ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that exist on the macro scale, and what do? They exert control or pressure or a great deal of influence over us on the micro scale. So there is your link. Please, while you are taking notes on all of these different lectures that I have compiled from previous weeks in the past, if you hear me say something's from week 5 or week 4 or week 6, please disregard that. You're watching them in the order that I have reorganized them for you to watch this particular fall 2022 semester. So please make sure that you pay attention to that. And if I assign this video to one of you in the spring 2023 or fall 2023, if you're watching this video for the content, then forget that I'm, referring to a particular semester that I made this video, because the content is what you need to focus on, okay? So please make sure that you are constantly evaluating the lecture videos that you're taking notes on for these connections. Draw this over again in your notes right underneath that other one that you should already have drawn in your notes. And if you didn't, go back to the video where it was and draw it in your notes now so that you can have that visual to look at and the explanations of those links. And maybe I would appreciate it actually if you can come up with a better way, a better picture. I barely make circles, so don't make it too complicated, but if you can come up with a better picture for me to demonstrate the link, like instead of just these overlapping circles, the link between macro to micro, I would appreciate it. That would be great. You can even put it in a reaction paper if you would like to for this week. So please make sure that you're careful about those notes. Make sure that you ask me questions when they come up. That's why you have my cell number. You can text me at any time with the question. I get very, very lonely for you, so please text me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.